Coming up, cool stuff for you and your flying adventures, our annual gear guide.
The lady in the bomber she built, a real-life Rosie the Riveter.
And when is a watch more than a watch? AOPA Live this week begins right after this.
Lightspeed Zulu 3, the most preferred, most awarded headset in general aviation. With decades of providing unsurpassed value and unsurpassed functionality, pilots all over the world love flying with Zulu 3. Try Zulu 3 today, risk-free, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Lightspeed, fly with Zulu.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Alyssa Cobb.
Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Well, when it comes to general aviation, it seems the light really might be a new recovery, not the oncoming train.
That's right. In the annual ritual usually associated with the NBAA convention, Honeywell this week released its annual Global Business Aviation Outlook. And survey says reports of GA's death have been greatly exaggerated. Honeywell surveyed business jet operators around the world, and they said the COVID-19 pandemic really has not affected their plans to buy new jets. After a drop in 2019 through 2020, the market is expected to rebound in 2021. Forecast is for sales of some 7,300 new business jets over the next 10 years. That's just 4% below the 10-year forecast last year. As usual, folks planning to buy business jets go for the big guys the most, and most of the prospective buyers will be in North America. You can read more on our website.
And Honeywell isn't the only optimist in the group. AOPA President Mark Baker recently told Forbes magazine publisher, pilot, and AOPA member Rich Karlgaard that general aviation is in a mini boom.
But first we must get to the big issue at hand, and that's the state of general aviation in the COVID economy. How is GA holding up, Mark?
Well, thanks, Rich. It's actually it's a good story. Well, there's lots of sadness, and in some cases, particularly the airline and our kind of next brethren over in aviation, the airline world. General aviation is in a mini boom right now. We've seen flights as measured by some of the top 77 airports up 10, 15%. Anecdotally, we hear fuel sales in certain FBOs up over 60%. And some days, most days, there's actually more 172 Cessnas in the air than there are Boeing 737s. So general aviation is seeing lots of use for lots of reasons.
Baker explained why GA is a better transportation solution during a pandemic.
Now, when there's a different value proposition, if you don't feel safe from a transmission of a virus issue, that's a whole other calculation of value. That a few gallons of avgas, and frankly, from time, as you well know, in a pretty good single, by the time you go to the commercial airport, wait for your turn to get on the airplane, get to the commercial airport on the other end, your Cirrus can beat the total time elapsed going to LA or something within 400 or 500 miles. Airlines can't beat you by much, if at all. And you do have the security of your own cockpit, much like your own vehicle or your car, of knowing who's in it and who's out of it and all those things. Those are different value equations that we've seen in the past about general aviation. And frankly, I think particularly as you relate to your Cirrus with the parachutes, but all of GA is twice as safe as it was from a fatal accident rate just 20 years ago. So we have an alternative means of transportation that is maybe being viewed today a little bit differently than it has been in the past.
You can read more on Forbes.com, and you can watch that interview on our website. But things not looking as good for the commercial airline world. Boeing released its forecast this week. The next 3 years are going to be very tough. 5 years before air travel is back to its 2019 levels, and that means 11% fewer new airliners will be built in the next 20 years than had been forecast just a year ago. That's more than 2,000 fewer airliners from all manufacturers. And while Boeing says it'll be a while for commercial aviation to ramp back up, but when that does happen, the need for aviation aerospace workers will be there. In anticipation of that, a group of aviation-friendly congressmen this week introduced a bill to develop greater worker expertise in aerospace. The House bill will create the National Center for the Advancement of Aviation, which will use interest from the Aviation Trust Fund to support STEM-based aviation curriculum, apprenticeships, and assist veterans and others transitioning into good-paying aviation technical jobs. Representatives Andre Carson, Don Young, and Rick Larson introduced that bill. An identical bipartisan bill was introduced in the Senate back in February by Senators Jim Inhofe and Tammy Duckworth.
Well, Textron was pleased to announce this week that the King Air 360 and 360ER have earned type certification from the FAA. The latest King Air variant features auto throttles and a digital pressurization system. The first King Air 360s are on the assembly line now. Deliveries begin in the fall. Base price, $7.9 million. Speaking of assembly lines, today, of course, it's pretty common to see women working beside men putting together a modern aircraft. But that wasn't the case 75 years ago.
Not at all. As the men went off to war, there wasn't anybody left to build the machines of war. And so America's women stepped in and a cultural icon was born, Rosie the Riveter. We had a chance to meet a woman who worked as a real-life Rosie the Riveter at one of the staging airports for the Arsenal Democracy flyover. AOPA Live's Josh Cochran has the story about Riveter Connie Palacios.
At the height of World War II, millions of men were sent overseas to fight for freedom. But back home, that left a gap. Who would build the tanks, airplanes, and other equipment needed to support the troops? The answer? Women. Millions answered the call, leaving home and heading to the factory. One of these women, Connie Palacio. Connie worked at the Boeing B-29 plant in Wichita, Kansas.
In 1943, I went to Boeing to work, and I rivet the nose section of this plane from here down to the end.
And Connie loves to tell the story about the work she did and the women she worked with.
The first day that I was at Boeing, I did not rivet because they said I didn't have a bucker. The next day, my lead man said, we have a bucker, but nobody wants to work with her because she's black. And so I said, oh, I don't mind working. So they brought Jerry Warden, was her name. And I tell you, she was the best bucker. If she hadn't been that good, I couldn't have done my job either. Yeah. And we became a pair. And we built 1,644 planes.
To further share her story, Connie volunteers at the B-29 Dock Hangar Education and Visitor Center in Wichita, Kansas.
I just greet them, and then I'll take them to the inside of where the plane is. And then when they want to take pictures with me and all that. So,
Dock is one of only 2 flying B-29 Superfortresses. The airplane flew again for the first time in 2016 after a massive restoration project, and Connie brags just a little about how well B-29s like Dock were riveted.
It was in the desert 42 years, and there were only 7 rivets missing. So we replaced those, but the others are still the original ones that I riveted when I was 18. I'm 95 now.
But mostly Connie is just grateful to serve and tell the story of women like her who made such an impact serving in World War II.
I'm blessed with good health that I can still do it again.
Josh Cochran, AOPA Live.
Well, what a great story. I'm so glad that Connie is, sharing her story with folks who are able to come see Doc and with us as well.
Yeah, she is amazing. I got to spend some time with her down at the Arsenal Democracy events. And she's just so outgoing and really loves talking to people and telling her story. And I know she does a great job out at Doc's hangar in Wichita. So I'm anxious to go back out there and see how she does that too. But she was really fun to hang out with, I got to tell you. Hey, when we come back, something crazy taking off near Denver.
And the latest from Garmin does some amazing stuff. AOPA Live This Week continues in a moment. Welcome back. Now here's something that really makes you scratch your head. Why would the FAA allow a hypersonic drone to be tested within 6 miles of one of the nation's busiest commercial airports? Not a good idea. And AOPA and other aviation organizations are saying the same. Colorado's Front Airport, now called the Colorado Air and Spaceport, has struck a deal with New Frontier Aerospace to test hypersonic drone rockets there. The airport is just miles from Denver International Airport. The aviation organizations have just written the FAA administrator saying the experimental rockets, capable of flying well beyond the speed of sound, aren't a good mix with large volume of commercial and general aviation traffic in that area. They said the testing would create safety hazards and airspace conflicts.
But hey, under the right circumstances, speedy aircraft can be fun. Behringer Aero and Air Race E are partnering to establish an all-electric aircraft racing league next year. The aircraft will fly an oval course, turning left, just like NASCAR, at speeds of about 280 miles an hour at, get this, just 33 feet above the ground. Racing teams have already formed in 9 countries. Now, low flying altitude can be exciting, especially if you fly through a tree. That's what happened to Marik Fatija at night near Richmond, Virginia. His story is a subject of the AOPA Air Safety Institute's latest There I Was podcast.
All of a sudden, I heard a loud crack. I think the airplane must have, shook or shattered, but I haven't felt that. In spite of being at full power and having headphones, I just heard this very loud crack. So the next thing, you're startled and you wonder what has just happened.
Welcome to another edition of There I Was, a podcast where we put you in the cockpit with pilots in demanding situations and we learn how they flew out of them.
You can find the podcast on our website or in your favorite podcast app. And there's another podcast in the series you might want to check out, episode 12, Air Trek. It's the story of how 2 pilots handled a double flameout in a Cessna Citation at altitude and then a dead stick landing. Their Jet A had been contaminated with diesel exhaust fluid, DEF. This week, the National Business Aviation Association honored the pilots, Bruce Monier and Gerald Downs, with its newly founded Airmanship Award. They also participated in a safety webinar with journalists Miles O'Brien, John and Martha King, and our own safety guru, Richard McSpadden, this week.
The value of staying cool in this kind of a situation is hard to overstate, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you, Miles. What struck me when I talked to them about the incident, first of all, when you hear about it, you don't believe it. You go, they did what? They dead sticked a Citation? And when you talk to them, just their composure throughout the whole thing is really remarkable as an example for all of us that no matter what, maintain your composure, analyze the situation and fly the airplane. And then just the airmanship as you go through the story, I'm sure John and Martha, were striking this too, but just the things that they had to do that weren't in the checklist, the judgment that they were using for the glide speed, the crew back and forth, how they were talking to each other, let's do this, why do that, flaps, no flaps. It's just a remarkable example of crew coordination and airmanship.
That webinar will be available from NBAA after October 12th, but remember, you can hear their story now on the There I Was podcast on our website.
An impressive milestone for Garmin, 5,000 rescues attributed to its inReach communicator. This little handheld can send an interactive SOS via satellite to the International Emergency Response Coordination Center. Rescuers can send messages back to find out what kind of help is needed. Aviators can use their Garmin Pilot app to send and receive messages through the inReach. And Garmin has a new watch designed just for pilots. AOP Editor-at-Large Dave Hirschman shows us the Garmin D2 Air.
Garmin is trying something that's just about impossible, and that's trying to get pilots to wear watches again. Personally, I stopped wearing a watch about 4 years ago when my last Timex Ironman's battery wore out. And I really enjoyed wearing a watch. It was super useful for flying because, the Ironman, it's like, okay, it tells the local time, Zulu time, it's got a stopwatch, and that's just about all I needed in a pilot watch. Garmin has made a light, comfortable D2 watch that actually links to your smartphone. And instead of trying to replace it or have one device or the other, it builds on the capabilities of the smartphone and sort of builds them into the watch. In addition to the essentials for a pilot watch, Zulu time, local time, stopwatch, and good looks, The Garmin D2 watch adds a whole bunch of features that show your altitude, your heart rate, your blood oxygen level, and you can actually navigate with it. It's got a direct to function, and the Garmin D2 watch actually logs your flights, and it'll make a record of them. So when you want to look back and see what the time and distance of your last 10 flights were, it shows you right on the screen. This watch is a $500 item, and I've been trying it out for the last week or so and have found it really useful. It would be hard to give up this watch after wearing one again. It's actually kind of fun and really useful.
Well, Tom, I guess pilots have triple redundancy in the cockpit now. So if they lose their panel mount GPS and their EFB, they can, just look at their watch and navigate direct to their destination and even check the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to say, though, what I like about it is how small it is. I have worn and tried out some of the earlier Garmin aviation watches and a couple of the other ones that are out there, and I got to tell you, they were just too big. It was like wearing a manhole cover on your wrist. This one, they've really got the size down, and it looks like it'd be a lot more convenient to fly with. So I'm looking forward to trying it out. I guess we'll have to extract it from Dave, and we'll give it a shot. Hey, destination flying is all the rage these days, but you got to have the right gear. AOPA pilot editors have put together a gear guide with a lot of great items for adventurous aviators. We wanted to see what pilots might think about the picks, so we went up the mountain to the home of AOPA Senior Account Executive for Advertising and Partnerships, Dan Justman. And then we just dumped a box on his driveway and had him dig through each thing and give us his first impressions from a rugged pilot's perspective.
Look at this box. Oh man, this does feel like Christmas. The Travel Scope 70 Celestron. All right. Yeah, it looks like lightweight. Nice little case to take it with. Well, this one's been calling me since I saw it right off the bat. Fly Fish Combo from Cabela's. Lightweight. That is a high quality rod right there. All right, what do we got here? Some footwear. Well, those are not my size, but I tell you what, my wife's gonna love them. I have no idea what this is, but we're gonna find out. Okay. What on earth is this? This looks like a scuba mask. I think it is. This might be a little overboard for this day and age of COVID, but you never know. All right, I gotta try it on. I can't help it. I think that's exactly what it is. Oh man, that'd be fun. All right, sleeping bag, can't beat it. Cloud veil. Down to 45 degrees, which is perfect up here by us right now. This would be great. Packs up nice and tight, lightweight. Lovely little pastel color. Ooh, there we go. Looks like a mummy size style bag. That's pretty cool. Comfy. Ooh, that's got a nice little liner in that. Feels not quite flannelly, but definitely would keep you warm. This looks like a big old spotlight for shining. Oh yeah, that's bright too. I know it's not going to show up in daytime, but it just about got my, holy cow, that's bright. I can't even look at it. Man, there's still a box full of stuff here. This is awesome. A vest. Oh, that's the AOPA pilot gear vest. I've seen this one. This one might be a little snug for me, but whoa, wow. Those are fancy. Very cool. Perfect for today. I might leave those on for the rest of the run here. And that's clear. Off-grid tool survival axe. Man, this thing looks like it's got a bunch of cool features. All right, summer shower. Well, as far as backcountry piloting goes, this would be really handy. Super light, packs up to just about nothing. Fill that with some water. Let the sunshine warm that right up. It's got a thermometer right on there so you know what temp you're getting to, if it's ready to give yourself a rinse or not. And I think you'd feel good and Everybody that you're flying and camping with probably would appreciate that too. Couple of satchels here. Wow, this looks like, I bet it's a cooler. That feels insulated and waterproof and light. That'd be great to fit in the back of the airplane. And another big old bag here. Very cool. A little bit of retro looking military-ish. Looks like we've just got some stuff in here to pack in there, but there's a lot of room. You can get easily a weekend's worth of clothes in there. Warm weather, cold weather, everything you need. Some straps on front to attach some stuff. Neat little pocket for toiletries, things like that. Looks like there's a couple clips for shoulder strap to lug around the backcountry campsite. Pretty cool. I think that'd work out really well.
Thanks, Dan, for the look at the gear. You can find the gear guide in the November issue of AOPA Pilot Magazine. So Dan's pretty creative there on the fly, coming up with some clever lines for that gear.
Yeah, he sure was. You know, I'm ready for all that gear to come out my way so I can load it in the 170 and go camping.
Okay, we'll send it your way. Hey, that's our show for this week. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time.
Yep, and let us know what you think by email or by comments on YouTube. We hope you'll join us again next Thursday, and remember, wash your hands and vote.
Purchasing your own aircraft is an exciting experience. AOPA Finance simplifies the process, saving you money with lower interest rates and hassle-free loans, so you get into your new aircraft sooner. AOPA Finance, the right approach to buying an aircraft.